Welcome, Lincoln.
Anuj, hello. It's lovely to see you. And yeah, thanks for having this chat today. I think it's going to be really useful for a lot of people.
Absolutely, likewise. Just to kick the ball rolling, a couple of startups I've been working with have been asking me for a very long time, how do we crack the European market? And given that I come from a channel background, I've been emphasizing the fact that the fastest way and the most scaled way to crack into any market is look at local partnerships, local entities who can take you to those enterprises. And when we were talking last, I thought, why not look at your experience in that market and try to kind of peel the onion there and go deeper into what can some of the Indian startups do to launch their products, their services into that market. And hence I thought it'll be a great session to have. So we are starting this as a first a series of sessions, but to kick the whole series, what I thought we could do is start with a session on learning about what you do, how Aries came about, and then we'll go from there. But let's start with understanding who Lincoln is and what Aries does, and we can go from there. So why don't you give us a quick background about yourself and what Aries does, and we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, we've done the same when you're talking about using advisory services into different geographics. We're an interconnected world, a very educated world at the moment as well. And for us, we will always grow faster and go further together. So it just makes sense. And for us, yeah, breaking into places like Europe definitely have its own barriers to entry. And I think partner led is absolutely key in today's go to market, because you're surrounding your buyers with trust, you're using local boots on the ground knowledge, and you're leveraging their expertise to increase your luck surface area, which is absolutely huge. So for us, our Aris isn't just a framework; it's a philosophy. We've got four pillars: alignment, relevance, yield, and scale. And we believe that this is what every successful partnership is built on, whether it's existing or go to market or whatever it may be. So we designed Aris to help companies shift away from the transactional channel thinking and towards value-led, transformational partnerships, value-led partnerships. Um, yeah, and for us, yeah, that is the core of what we do. Yeah.
Sure. And we'll come to that. But let's discuss about Europe and UK and Europe. Let's say, uh, give us a view of what this landscape looks like. When somebody's coming and trying to launch a product or a company or a set of services, uh, how do we decipher that market? What does Europe mean? It could mean different things to different people. So if you could kind of lay the landscape a bit, that will kind of help us understand the market a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think partner led is key not only for the European region but globally. I think we've seen the real sort of insurgence of partner led growth and ecosystem led growth over the past 5 years. As Jay McBain, your guest the other day on your show, said, this is the decade of the ecosystem, and when we're halfway through now, and I think all signs are pointing in the same direction. I think when it comes to Europe and the UK, let's start by zooming out. It's multiple regulatory bodies, deeply local business cultures. So traditional go-to-market models, a ones that may work in, say, the US or the APAC region, often struggle here. But here's the opportunity. In Europe, trust very much moves the market. And trust is local. That's why partner-led growth is not only an option, it actually gives you a competitive advantage. Partners already have the trust, the access, the local knowledge, which essentially we help other companies leverage. and what they need is a structured way to co-create value with you. And that's essentially what brings us to Aris.
Sure. So let's talk about Ares, and if you could talk about your philosophy as an organization, how you came about, what's the genesis of Ares, because that also tells us a lot about the whole ecosystem led model. So would love to hear what Ares stands for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, for us, as we said, we've built the company on those four pillars: alignment, relevance, yield, and scale. And we believe that what every successful B2B alliance must be built on. You know, how it all started, as in our background and why Aris. Um, my background is in building partner ecosystems for tech and services companies expanding into new markets, especially Europe. So over the years, I kept seeing the same pattern. Great companies with great products really struggling because they were trying to scale without the right partners or with the wrong approach to partnerships in the geographic. Um, and essentially, Paris came out of the need to fix that problem, to help companies create meaningful, measurable, and scalable partnerships from day one so that they're not wasting their time. A lot of companies have low resource, low bandwidth, so they try to maximize their results. We were the same when we started as well. So, leveraging again local craft and that local knowledge. We're kind of like a pilot who jumps aboard a ship to navigate out of port. You know, those rivers change every single day, so that's why the pilot is so incredibly important. So the ship doesn't run aground, to be able to navigate those shifting tides, so that it can successfully launch into the ocean, and that's essentially what Aris does.
Correct. So if you were to ask what could be the key GTM objectives when it comes to launching into Europe, what would you divide those objectives into?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to keep it simple, we divide it into three core objective businesses should anchor when entering Europe. For us, establishing localized trust is probably number one. Um, for we use our network, which is global. And essentially, that means partnering with people who are already inside the room that you want to be in. And that's ultimately what we're trying to help other companies do, is get inside those rooms, be in those conversations, so that, again, you're increasing your visibility and brand reach. Number two is probably co-creating customer value. Customers run partner programs, not partners. Everything needs to be customer centric. And if you're increasing that customer value, then you are only going to be successful in partnering space. So don't just ask partners to sell, but build something with them that solves a problem better, faster, or cheaper. Remove those friction points and really add value to the end client. Probably number three, accelerating market fit and feedback. You know, Partners give you signal, not just access. And we say this all the time. Use them as an early warning system and strategic advisors in the ecosystems that you want to get into. So I think if you get those three right, Anuj, I think everything else, revenue, retention, and relevance, follows.
Great. As a follow-up question to that, so let's say I'm a startup, I'm a product company, or I've decided that I want to come to Europe. What kind of timelines, realistic timelines, I should say, I could think about when I'm doing my strategic planning, and what would that look like? What would a typical roadmap look like for a company to launch in that region?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we typically look at a three-phase roadmap. So phase one is what we call explore. That usually is sort of 4 to 8 weeks, depending on what the needs of clients are. And that would include things like market research, ICP matching, partner mapping, value alignment. I think of this as laying the foundation. Phase two, enable. So that is going into months 3 and 4. So who developing that joint value proposition, um, uh, partner messaging and onboarding. This is where the real engagement begins on that localized level, with contextualized outreach. And phase three is elevate. For us, that is sort of month 5 and 6, and actually beyond. We launch pilots and pilot co-sell plays to gather feedback, to layer in even more uh, partners based on success signals. So this is where we gather the data that can then optimize our outreach and our initiatives. Um, I think those timelines are realistic, um, but disciplined. You can't shortcut trust building. With the right framework, you can compress value realization.
Yeah. Yeah, would love to hear if you have any success story specifically in that space, because that also gives a lot of confidence to customers. You know, anything that you can share with the audience in terms of typically how you would have gone about one of your customers and what typically those outcomes were.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we actually have a couple of case studies actually. So what we'll do, just in regards to time saving efforts, I will attach one of those case studies in the comment section,
Sure.
where we post this, and people can have a look at those in real time. And that's just they just comprise of three sections, with the results being the latter, and you can see what results that actually does bring.
Sure. uh, One is obviously European market, but if you were to kind of try to generalize this and say that what could, from your perspective, what would be top three tips, if you will, for any company in a new market when it is launching? So, from a partner engagement perspective, what would those top three tips be for any market in general? Maybe European markets in specific.
Yeah, partner engagement is interesting because sometimes it can be geographical as well, dependent on culture, business environment, etc. So you have to be sensitive of those things. It's a big topic, but I think if I was to narrow it down to top three, we have a saying: number one, build for partners, not just through them. Treat them not just as a channel, um, but they're a growth partner. So invest heavily in their success. Um, I think number two, line incentives beyond revenue. Partners care about brand credibility, strategic alignment, product motivation, innovation too, not just commissions. And we see that we use both a transactional and transformational approach to when we're building out these initiatives. So, gain some quick wins and gain some relevance through some transactional relationships, but really concentrate on medium and long-term capabilities through value-led motions. And I think number three, simplify everything. We work on a concept of radical simplicity, Anuj, and it's one of the things that we find in channel and ecosystems, that they're just too complex. We've talked to over 150 CEOs in the last 12 months, and probably top three uh, complaint or issue, for lack of a better word, would be they're just far too complex. We need something very simple. We need it direct, and we need to make sure that it ties in. And it's treated as a strategic priority across every level of our business. And that's something that we help people do. I think, in short, if a partner can't understand your value proposition and act on it within under 15 minutes, you've lost them.
Got it. Very interesting. I think, as we said, we'll kind of break it into uh, a bunch of sessions. What we did today was primarily to focus on some of your background, what that market looks like. What we would like to do is next time uh, dive a little more deeper in terms of what that stack could look like, what the partner tierings could look like, and then start going deeper into some of these areas, because that will help the audience also understand from a 36,000 feet down to the ground level.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's important because we need to have it as bite size. So that's why we're going to I think, break these sessions up, make it very accessible, snapshot of what we're looking to do. And as you said, then really zoom in on how and where to do that and hopefully help a few people along the way. So yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, and it was great talking to you, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it and look forward to the next session.
Thanks, Lincoln. Thanks.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.